Information fueled.
Opinion driven.
This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news.
6:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Hope you're doing well, and welcome on in your Monday, January 27th. We're, 1 week in with the Trump administration, and I got to tell you that if this weekend was any indication as to how good the next 4 years are going to be, then I think that we are in for a great but wild ride. Now, this interview between J.D. Vance and Margaret Brennan, it really was a barn burner because I think there was a lot of people that criticized the vice president for going on with Margaret Brennan and going on the mainstream networks as his first interview of as vice president. And I understand the reason why people criticized him. You know, it's the same thing when we heard that President Trump was going to go on with NBC in one of his first interviews. And it was because, you know, a lot of people said, why are you legitimizing the networks? Why are you legitimizing ABC, CBS, NBC, and so forth? Why don't you go on, I don't know, Fox News? Why did you go on Newsmax? Why didn't you go on whatever? But I think the reason why Trump went on, I think it was NBC with Kirsten Welker, and J.D. Vance goes on with Margaret Brennan, I think the reason why he did that is to delegitimize them. And here's what I mean by that. If you look at the interview, if you watch the interview, if you see how J.D. Vance over and over again just proves that Margaret Brennan, she has absolutely no idea where the American people are at with a lot of these issues that we voted on. And she clearly went in there with an agenda to go after J.D. Vance and to fight with J.D. Vance. I mean, you could tell. I mean, she came loaded for bear.
Pete Hegseth, it was a tie. Bipartisan opposition, smallest margin since the job was created. You had to break that tie. If the nominee can't unite your party, how's he going to lead 3 million people?
I mean, yeah, this was great news Friday night, late Friday night. Pete Hegseth was confirmed. Very big deal. And he did receive bipartisan opposition. Now, the question is, who voted against him? 3 Republicans. Lisa Murkowski, of course, from Alaska was one. The same Lisa Murkowski, as many people have pointed out on social media, she voted to confirm Ketanji Brown Jackson for the Supreme Court. The same Ketanji Brown Jackson that couldn't define what a woman was. Lisa Murkowski voted to confirm her. She voted against confirming Brett Kavanaugh. And she also voted for Joe Biden's pick, Rachel Levine, as Assistant Secretary for Health. Not only transgender, but also Rachel Levine was obese. I've said this 1,000 times. Rachel Levine was obese. Not exactly what you would want for the Assistant Secretary for Health. Rachel Levine, not exactly the personification of health. And so that's who Lisa Murkowski is. And I think that, you know, I just really don't believe that she's much of a Republican. I don't. So you've got Susan Collins, of course, Mitch McConnell as well, voting against Pete Hegseth. But to me, those 3, not really all that surprising.
Pete Hegseth, it was a tie. Bipartisan opposition, smallest margin since the job was created. You had to break that tie. If the nominee can't unite your party, how's he going to lead 3 million people?
I don't believe that Murkowski and Collins and Mitch McConnell, I just don't think that they're part of the modern Republican Party. Whatever. By the way, my question would be this. How long has it been since the Pentagon actually passed an audit? I've lost count, to be honest. And so the more that you look at, you know, how a lot of people are going to say Pete Hegseth, he's not a traditional kind of Secretary of Defense. Well, let me tell you something, friends. That's not a bad thing, because our current military has been high on DEI and low on morale and recruitment. over the course of the last 4 years. And by the way, we also left all that equipment in Afghanistan. Remember that after the failed pullout? So there's a lot of reasons to criticize all of the guys with all of the medals and all of the stripes on their uniform.
We need a big change. Now, admittedly, there are people who don't like that big change, but it is necessary, and it's explicitly what Donald J. Trump ran on. And I think part of the reason why the American people elected him their 47th president.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. J.D. Vance talking about Pete Hegseth, among other things, with Margaret Brennan. Then FEMA was brought up. And I love what President Trump is talking about with FEMA.
The president did say he wants to do something with an executive order in relation to federal emergency response. He said he may reform or eliminate FEMA. Instead of sending emergency responders, he may start to send a percentage of money to states to take care of themselves. But, you know, FEMA has specialized expertise that some of these states just don't have.
Did you hear that, what she said? Well, you know, some of these states just, they don't have the expertise that FEMA has. Really? Would you like to look at what the heck happened in North Carolina? Would you like to look and see what happened back in 2020 with the California wildfires and FEMA? So the deal with FEMA is that there's been a lot of mistakes that have been made over the years.
We signed an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and, whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area, and they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster.
I mean, he's right. I mean, Donald Trump spent a lot of time over the weekend. I think maybe it was Friday, but he was in North Carolina. He then went to California. And in both of those places, we always see the same things. We saw this in Florida, too. You've got communications issues. You've got the roads that are a mess for weeks afterwards. Homes haven't even started to be rebuilt. You've got all these people that are trying to figure out where they're going to stay. Trump comes in and he says, you know what? FEMA can't seem to get their act together and make sure that you guys have a roof over your head. So we're just going to change this and put you in some apartments longer term. And that's what he did. And then he's doing everything he can to wipe away all of the regulations in not only North Carolina, but also California, to make sure that all of that is clear so that the rebuilding can begin. And let's also, of course, not forget FEMA and their politicizing in North Carolina, where they wouldn't help Trump supporting neighborhoods. So there's a lot of criticisms of FEMA, and they deserve to be criticized. And so now Trump is saying we're going to take a percentage of what we give FEMA and we're going to give that to the states so that they can do what they need to do and not be reliant on a failed governmental agency that has been proven that it's a failure time and time again.
You know, FEMA has specialized expertise that some of these states just don't have.
Oh, Margaret,
in their arsenal. And
I wish
how
that they...
will states who are lower income states, the Mississippis, the Kentuckys, the Alabamas, be able to do this for themselves without federal help?
Well, the president, to be clear, is not saying we're going to leave anybody behind. He's saying that in the way that we administer these resources, some of which is coming from the federal level, some of which is coming from the state level, we've got to get the bureaucrats out of the way and get the aid to the people who need it most.
But these
Let's
are the
be
first
honest,
responders.
Margaret, you talk about the expertise from FEMA. FEMA in North Carolina, in California, in Florida with some of the hurricanes has often been a disaster.
I mean, he's right. In Florida, they had tornadoes, a bunch of damage, and Ron DeSantis asked for an emergency declaration. FEMA actually said no. And so now people, and DeSantis, I think, has even said this, believes that was because of politics. And as far as California goes, they had the massive fires back in 2020. FEMA had a record low approval rate for people needing assistance in California. And that was because of a number of issues, including, by the way, communications failures within FEMA. 6:16, time to check the roads on WTN. All right, very good. As far as your weather today, a high of 47 right now. You said 33 degrees, KGB?
36.
36 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Illegal immigration. We're going over some of the more relevant audio, J.D. Vance and Margaret Brennan. And Joan, would you help me out? Is Margaret Brennan, is she CBS?
She is, yes. CBS, yes.
All right, CBS. So people are blasting J.D. Vance for going on CBS for his first vice presidential interview. I think it's good because what he's doing is, as much as we all know that the networks have, destroyed their own credibility, J.D. Vance going on with Margaret Brennan and her asking the questions that she's asking in the way that she's asking them, they're really showing how they're not really looking for the truth. They're just looking to fight. For example, illegal immigration.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops this week condemned some of the executive orders signed by President Trump, specifically those allowing immigration and customs enforcement to enter churches and to enter schools. Do you personally support the idea of conducting a raid or enforcement action in a church service, at a school?
So can I just ask a question? Because this has been driving me nuts. Who cares what the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops have to say? I mean, no offense if you're Catholic, but who cares? I mean, they can complain about Donald Trump and mass deportation all they want, and you're going to hear J.D. Vance say it. But do you know how many millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that they get from illegal immigration and people coming into our country, and then they go through Catholic charities and so forth, and they're, rehomed or sent to wherever they need to go, and they make a lot of money off of that. So to hear J.D. Vance tell it and many other people, they may just be looking out for their bottom line.
As a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line?
Exactly. Between 2011 and 2016, they got $635 million. Lord knows how much they got over the last 4 years with Joe Biden in office. And obviously, we need to get to the dangerous criminals in the schools and the churches because they are dangerous criminals. And so I love how J.D. Vance, on with Margaret Brennan, I love how he turns it around on her as she is peppering him with all these questions.
Let me ask this question, Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
Giving the authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce the law everywhere to protect Americans.
A chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling effect on illegal immigrants coming into our country.
You think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals from
I think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
And me too. And the media was all about these Catholic bishops, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and what they had to say about Donald Trump and mass deportation and how that is instilling fear in communities across the country. I like what J.D. Vance has to say. It is 6:21 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, coming up at 6:35, we're going to talk about Antioch High School and this new program that they have brought into the school in light of the shooting last week. We're going to talk about not only this new system, it's not good. I'm just going to tell you that right off the bat. It's not good. That's number one. And number two, what is the future of the leader of Metro Nashville Public Schools, Director Adrian Battle? It is all straight ahead. On Nashville's Morning News, it is 6:21. Joan Jones has the news at 6:30. Joan.
Yeah, coming up here, we'll tell you about what's going on with President Trump's picks for confirmation who's up next during the next week. And also, a woman from Alabama has become the first person ever to survive for 2 months with a kidney from a pig. Yeah, we'll tell you about that coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Megan Jones, 622 on Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis here. You know, I always recommend Mark Spain Real Estate here in Nashville because I trust that they're going to sell your home hassle-free with a strong all-cash offer. Now, I know that they've been helping homeowners sell their homes for nearly 30 years now, and they've served over 58,000 families. And with all those clients, Mark Spain Real Estate is the #1 most reviewed real estate company in America. They've got over 12,500 five-star reviews. You can trust, my friends, at Mark Spain Real Estate to sell your home fast and for maximum profit and the least amount of hassle. That, my friends, is the guaranteed offer. Now, there's a reason why they've had so much success, that guaranteed offer. A quick sale, maximum profit, least amount of hassle. So get your guaranteed offer on your home today. 855-299-SOLD is the phone number, 855-299-SOLD. You can find them online anytime at markspain.com and start packing.